Well, without cops, who would brutalize an innocent man who, after a long day of work, decided to sit down and have a beer with his friends? This gardener from San Rafael has already filed a lawsuit against these two cops. They will be named in this video. We know that cops don't produce anything of value. As a matter of fact, they extract value from society when they pull you over and they give you a ticket and they issue a fine. And it almost seems like they want to fill in that gap that they leave of not producing anything by trying with all their might to eliminate people who actually do produce value in society. And I think it's time that we all just kind of wake up, smell the smelling salts of reality, and come to grips with what's actually going on in American law enforcement today.
This week marks 1 year since San Rafael police officers took down a gardener who had been enjoying a beer on a remote street with friends after work. That man suffers several serious injuries.
You thought you would sit down and enjoy a beer with your friends? Well, think again, buddy. We're American law enforcement. We're going to protect and serve the stew out of you.
And in just the past half hour, that gardener, Julio Lopez, filed a federal civil lawsuit against the officers, the police, the department, as well as the city.
That's right.
Good, but who's going to get dinged for that? It's going to be the American tax cattle. It's going to be the San Rafael tax cattle. It's not going to be these specific officers. It's not going to come out of the pocket of the captain. They're not going to learn anything here because basically they can act with impunity. They can do whatever they want and there are no financial or otherwise repercussions.
I-Team reporter Dan Noyes was the first to break the story last year, and he's back now with the very latest. Dan?
Well, Kristen and Larry, both of the officers involved in that violent confrontation no longer work for the San Rafael police. The department says the terms of their departure are confidential, so we don't know for sure whether they were fired or left on their own. Isn't
that amazing? So now we have the thin blue line veil of secrecy. Well, what did they say? Terms of separation are confidential. Terms of separation are confidential. Not saying that they're fired. Maybe they were given, some kind of accommodation where some police department in another county or another state over can pick them up because, hey, these are great police officers. But this veil of secrecy that they lay over everything, where is this interest in transparency they're always talking about?
The lawsuit against the city of San Rafael, their police department, and former officers Brandon Nail and Daisy Mazariegos was filed.
Brandon Nail and Daisy Mazariegos. There you go. There's Daisy right there. Let's see. What can I do today? Oh, there's a guy sitting on a curb enjoying a beer. Let's go ruin his day. And Brandon Nail says, yeah, actually, let's not just ruin his day. Let's mess up his entire life and leave him with life-altering injuries.
Filed today in federal court, San Francisco division. Why is this a federal case?
Julio's rights were violated in a very violent way. Going back to the founding of our country and the Bill of Rights, we all have the right against excessive force and reasonable searches and seizures. That comes from the Fourth Amendment.
Anthony Label represents Julio Lopez and his wife. Lopez had wrapped a long day of gardening when he stopped for a beer along Windward Way with two relatives with whom he works. The officers arrive, ask for his ID, and when he stands to retrieve it from his front pocket, they take him down.
Sit down. Just sit down.
But you have to understand.
Okay.
Hey.
There we go. Hands on. Now, I just want to ask something about Daisy and Brandon here. Let's look at Brandon's face. Can we get it here in the frame? There's Brandon right there. Hey, mom of Brandon, how do you feel about this guy now? Are you proud? How did you raise your son to actually disregard human life? The guy, the gardener, the producer in society is sitting down, obviously relaxing. The cops can see they're not dumb. They don't have zero IQ. They can assess the situation and go, oh, Julio just sitting down drinking a beer. He's not harming anybody. He's not threatening to harm anybody. He's not doing anything dangerous to himself or others. He's not damaging property. They're just sitting down relaxing. Oh, but you have a law that says, oh, an open container. Stop the presses. Life is horrible. If you see a man with an open container, we got to do something, because you're a conformist. You just do what you're told regardless of what is right. As a matter of fact, you go out of your way to disregard what is right so that you can do what you're told. And that's the conduit through which most evil enters the world. Well, we're just following orders. We're just doing what the policy says. We just take cues from the political parasites, and then we enforce these laws, because government is not eloquence. It's not reason. It's force. And like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. So here comes Brandon and Daisy on the scene to make America safe. BS.
Officers arrive, ask for his ID, and when he stands to retrieve it from his front pocket, they take him down.
Sit down. Just sit down.
But you have
Sit
to
down.
understand.
Okay.
God. Daisy loves giving orders.
Medical records show Lopez suffered a broken nose, a concussion, and a shoulder injury that required surgery.
When I was in the ground, I thought I'm gonna die, because it's, all the blood, it's really scary,
In our exclusive,
You got these two armed agents of the state, two psychopathic armed agents of the state on top of you. This Brandon dude was like 6'2" or 6'3" and 230 pounds. This guy's a little guy, and they know they can take him because they're cowards. They're misfits in society. Something needs to be done with them.
interview from May, his wife told me the ordeal has changed Julio.
He's not the same. He has not like the same confidence as before. He tried to be the same because he's a man that loves his family.
The complaint lists more than a dozen causes of action, from unreasonable detention and arrest, excessive force, failure to properly train the officers, assault, battery, negligence. It says a reasonable law enforcement officer would not have used aggressive tactics over something as minor as an open container of beer.
How about a moral law enforcement officer? Not just reasonable, because that's basically subjective, reasonable, articulable suspicion. Well, I reasonably believe that these guys were engaged in committing a crime, and because political parasites wrote something down on a piece of paper, I just felt compelled to please the political class because I am the law enforcement class. How about a little morality? How about just sprinkle in just a little dash of human kindness and compassion?
Maybe they shouldn't have been drinking a beer there, but that wasn't conduct that in any way justified the level of violence that these officers inflicted on him.
It didn't justify anybody walking up to a guy saying anything about anything because he wasn't disturbing anybody. He wasn't harassing anybody. Daisy and Brandon were. He wasn't beating somebody to a pulp. Daisy and Brandon ended up doing that. He wasn't threatening the life of somebody, but Daisy and Brandon, well, that's a different story.
Tells me Julio Lopez wants his day in court for a jury.
And you know what? Another thing, too, that nobody talks about. How about these officers? Nobody's asking any questions because they fall under the thin blue line gang code of dishonor. And they are going to sit there and they are going to protect their fellow law enforcement agents. They're going to protect their fellow fraternal order of police. Nobody's going to ask, hey, why did you rough this guy up? Why is there a pool of blood on the ground? What did the guy actually do? Where's his victim? If there is no victim, there's no crime, and I'm not going to take him away. I'm not going to participate in this little escapade of yours.
For a jury to decide the case. Neither Nail nor Mazariegos responded to my texts and phone calls for comment. A spokesman for Police Chief David Spiller emailed me that the department would not comment on pending litigation.
The San Rafael City Attorney did not respond to my calls for comment. The former officers now face felony charges of assault by an officer under color of authority and false statements in a crime report. They're both scheduled to make a court appearance coming up next month. That's in the criminal case for the officers.
So the question is, did they deprive Julio of his right to just be left alone? And did they do it under color of law? Yes, they did. If it's found that they did do that, then they clearly violated 18 USC 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. And if they did that, you know what one of the prescriptions are for punishment in 18 USC 242. It says a lawsuit filed against a police department in Northern California claims cops beat a man who was already face down in a pool of blood for drinking a beer in public. And I'm going to end this the way I started it. Without cops, who would harass and beat an innocent man for, after a long day of work and gardening, sitting down with his friends and drinking a beer? Who would jeopardize the life and the health of somebody but the local police department? If we want to change things, we all got to wake up to the reality of what's really going on. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. Don't forget to subscribe to my email list through my website, highimpactflix.com. That's highimpactflix.com. If you want to support the channel further, there's links in the description, and you can grab a hard-hitting conversation starting design. You can put on a shirt, hoodie, mug, cell phone case, pillowcase, whatever you want. Remember, the price of freedom is now and will always be eternal vigilance. And indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression. I will see you in the next video.